Hi once again, seekers of the abyss. In science fiction, there have been countless attempts to represent alien organisms in disturbing ways, but only a few have truly succeeded. These are creatures that invade, mutilate, and transform their victims in brutal ways that stay burned into memory. Today we're going to see how they function, how they attack, and how every single encounter with them turns into pure biological horror. Each of these depictions shows what it would really mean to face something impossible to control and even harder to understand. Let's begin. We start strong with the mimics. If you've seen Edge of Tomorrow, you'll remember them instantly. The film was adapted from Hiroshi Sakurazaka's novel, All You Need Is Kill, and the way it reimagined alien warfare is still one of the most brutal concepts ever put on screen. At first glance, they look like chaotic biomechanical monsters, but the longer you look, the more disturbing they become. They don't invade the way we expect. They bend time itself until winning becomes inevitable. The setup is deceptively straightforward. An asteroid crashes in Germany. Out of it comes a species that Dr. Carter calls a perfectly evolved world-conquering organism. Within 5 years, Europe is gone. Entire armies collapse, cities are consumed, and humanity scrambles to form the United Defense Force. But every counterattack fails, and the reason is horrifying. The mimics don't treat defeat the way we do. When one of their alphas, rare command units buried among millions of drones, is killed, their central brain, the Omega, rewinds the clock by 24 hours. The battlefield resets. Every mistake is corrected. Every failed maneuver disappears. Humanity dies while the mimics rehearse. Imagine a war where the enemy gets infinite retries until the outcome is perfect. That's the reality they impose. Biologically, they're as disturbing as their temporal powers. Their bodies are all motion, a mass of tendrils that whip, crawl, and strike faster than the human eye can process. They can burrow underground, erupt from the soil, climb vertical surfaces, swim through water, and even fire blasts of energy from their limbs. Drones are the most common, smaller, expendable, yet armored enough to shrug off heavy fire. They glow with orange bioluminescence, like they're burning from within. Then there are the alphas, larger, rarer, marked by a blue glow, with serrated jaws and angular features that make them look almost skeletal. Only one alpha exists for every 6 million drones, which makes them both terrifying and crucial, because their deaths are what trigger the Omega's power. And finally, the Omega itself. It never appears on the front lines. It hides, a massive pulsing brain buried beneath the Louvre in Paris, a grotesque core surrounded by protective tendrils. It doesn't fight directly, it doesn't need to. It coordinates everything with precision, a general that never dies because it can erase the moment of its death. The time loop is their ultimate weapon. Every alpha killed pulls the Omega back one day, allowing it to play out the same war from a new angle, over and over again. The mimics never fight blindly. They're learning machines disguised as organisms. And yet, this system has a flaw. If a human is exposed to alpha blood at the moment of death, the power transfers. That's how William Cage ends up trapped in the same endless cycle as the mimics, waking up each morning after being slaughtered on the beach, forced to learn as they do. Rita Vertasky, the Angel of Verdun, had already lived through the same curse. Her famous victory wasn't a miracle, it was bait. A stage success designed by the Omega to lure humanity into an even bigger massacre. The horrifying truth is that every battle humanity thought it won was actually written into the mimics' plan. Every act of resistance was part of their script, and the novel goes even further. In All You Need Is Kill, the mimics are portrayed less like machines and more like insectoid antenna creatures, their bodies serving as conduits for the hive mind. The time loop functions like a curse, slowly distorting the minds of anyone trapped within it. Keiji Kiriya and Rita begin to notice that, with every reset, their own thought patterns are being altered. Each repetition pushes them closer to the mindset of the very enemy they are trying to destroy. The cycle erases the boundary between human and alien until the most chilling realization appears. Victory comes at the cost of losing your humanity. And that's pretty terrifying. That darker origin also clarifies their purpose. The mimics weren't designed to invade for conquest alone. In Sakurazaka's work, they're terraformers. They're biological machines created by something far more advanced, sent to reconfigure entire planets for colonization. What they do to Earth isn't invasion in the traditional sense. It's ecological replacement. Their bodies dig into the ground, alter the terrain, reshape the environment, rewriting the conditions of the planet itself. In that sense, the mimic swarm isn't an army. It's the immune system of a much larger alien organism consuming the Earth. Meanwhile, humanity tries to fight back. The Day of the Beach was supposed to be our great counteroffensive, but in reality, it was a trap engineered by the Omega. Even Rita's legend as the Angel of Verdun wasn't a triumph of human courage, but a calculated move to bait us into false confidence. The exosuits, advertised as the breakthrough technology that would save the war, were clunky and underpowered compared to the speed of the mimics. For every soldier, that meant charging straight into slaughter. What humans thought was strategy was just rehearsal material for the swarm. That's the real horror, evolution compressed into seconds. On the battlefield, the mimics are unstoppable. In strategy, they're untouchable. Every soldier's death is erased. Every sacrifice is meaningless. The more we fight, the more they learn. The mimics don't just win wars, they refine them until perfection is achieved. And the cost of breaking that cycle is devastating. Cage and Rita managed to turn the system against the mimics, but only by thinking and dying exactly as they do. To win, they had to become part of the very process that was consuming them. Symbolically, the mimics embody the nightmare of modern warfare. Endless battles fought, lost, and fought again. Generations repeating the same mistakes while the system itself survives. In war, individuals are erased, their deaths written out of history, their sacrifices forgotten. The mimics take that reality and push it to its logical extreme. A war where bravery never matters because the battlefield resets and only the system learns. That's what makes them so disturbing. It isn't the violence of their attacks, it's the inevitability of their design. An enemy that kills you is terrifying. An enemy that kills you, learns from it, and comes back again is something else entirely. The mimics are a blueprint for conquest. Organisms perfected for war, capable of erasing not just resistance, but the very possibility of victory. And the true cost of survival is realizing that to beat them, you must first become one of them. This is one of the most terrifying alien species ever created, and they come from the universe of Halo, the Flood, also called the Parasite, the Dead-Made Flesh, or the Embodied. They are not an empire nor an army. They are a virulent organism, a plague that grows by consuming other life with enough biomass and advanced cognition to be useful. Humans, forerunners, Sangheili. It makes no difference. Once infected, the host is stripped of its will, its identity, and transformed into another extension of the swarm. They are not native to the Milky Way. Originating in a distant galaxy, these creatures are uniquely adaptable. They can survive almost any condition, freezing cold, scorching heat, or sealed, humid environments. Their biology is parasitic in the purest sense. Their cells inject genetic material directly into the cells of the host, violently rewriting them. From there, the body mutates through accelerated evolutionary stages, each designed for the sole purpose of spreading the infection. Their history ties into the darkest chapter of galactic myth. Long ago, the Forerunners rebelled against their creators, the Precursors, and emerged victorious. The survivors of that ancient war reduced themselves into a fine dust that could, in theory, regenerate them in the future. But corruption set in. The dust twisted, producing disease, madness, and mutation. The Precursors embraced this decay, allowing themselves to become part of it. From that ruin emerged the Flood. Not just parasites, but vengeance incarnate against the Forerunners and all life they had nurtured. At their weakest, they exist in what is called the feral stage. In this state, they cannot coordinate beyond local pheromone communication. They infect and consume, but lack strategy. Yet even here, they are lethal. Once enough biomass is absorbed, they transition into the coordinated stage. This is when a gravemind forms. A gravemind is not a single body, but an entity created by fusing thousands of cells with the nervous systems and memories of intelligent hosts. The result is a massive, centralized intelligence capable of planning, manipulating, and commanding every form of the hive as though it were its own body. It is strategic, patient, and terrifyingly cunning, and it only grows stronger the more minds it assimilates. The life cycle reflects this progression. Infection forms are small, cephalopod-like creatures that paralyze a host and enter through the chest or neck, fusing directly with the nervous system. Once control is established, the victim mutates into a combat form, a grotesque soldier twisted from its original species. With time, these can turn into carrier forms, swollen and unstable, which eventually burst to release more infection forms. When enough intelligence is gathered, the parasite produces a proto-gravemind, a mass of bodies fused together into a neural cluster. Fed with more biomass, this protoform evolves into a full gravemind, a near-omniscient entity with total control over every organism in its range. Beyond this lies the pure forms, abominations built entirely from concentrated biomass rather than converted hosts. With calcium exoskeletons and specialized adaptations, they are stronger, faster, and deadlier than any combat form. Variants include ranged attackers, hulking brutes, and agile stalkers designed to hunt survivors. The spread changes not just bodies, but environments. Surfaces are covered in pulsating biomass, the air fills with spores, and entire worlds become breeding grounds. The infection is self-sustaining. The more intelligent the host, the more powerful the hive becomes. Infected organisms retain memories and skills, meaning every scientist, soldier, or strategist absorbed only strengthens the collective. The gravemind is not only a monster, it is a library of every mind it has ever consumed. The Forerunners, the most advanced civilization of their age, were powerless before this. Once the central intelligence matured, fleets, weapons, and even their vast empire could not hold. Nearly all intelligent life in the Milky Way was consumed. In desperation, they created the Halo Array, a network of ring-world superweapons. Their function was not to destroy the parasite directly, but to cut off its food supply. By eradicating every sentient organism in their firing radius, the Halos starved the plague. It was the only way to stop them, a solution so desperate it demanded the sacrifice of an entire galaxy. And yet, even this was not absolute. The Forerunners preserved samples in secret research facilities, ensuring the threat could never truly be erased. Inevitably, outbreaks returned, each one a reminder that this enemy is not something you defeat, but something you delay. Symbolically, they embody the most terrifying aspects of parasitism. They dissolve the individual, erase cultures, and strip meaning from death itself. Where the mimic's perfect war through repetition, here, extinction is perfected through assimilation. Every death feeds the hive. Every intelligent mind consumed makes the swarm stronger, and even gods fall into its biomass. That is why the Flood stand as one of the most disturbing alien species in all of science fiction. Not just predators, but extinction with a will, vengeance shaped into biology, and proof that sometimes the most unstoppable enemy is not the one that invades, but the one that infects. This is one of the most terrifying alien organisms ever conceived. Calvin, the life form discovered in life, isn't a monster in the traditional sense. He has no claws forged by evolution on Earth, no hive or weapons or culture. He is the weapon, every cell designed to fulfill every biological function at once. Muscle, nerve, and eye fused into one perfect structure. That means there is no weak point. Stab him, burn him, cut him. You are only strengthening the same adaptive system that has already outlived Mars itself. Calvin's origin story is deceptively simple. Scientists recover a dormant cell from Martian soil and believe it's lifeless. But when they recreate the atmosphere of ancient Earth, it wakes. What they think is a miracle of science becomes a nightmare of biology. At first, it resembles a translucent root, even a flower, something fragile. But feeding accelerates its growth. Within hours, that harmless plant-like stage mutates into a semi-transparent cephalopod, with dark structures pulsing inside and tendrils that can crush bone. Every new meal becomes raw material for expansion. Calvin grows bigger, faster, and more intelligent with every organism he consumes. And here is the disturbing truth. He was not hostile in the beginning. When small, he reached out with what looked like curiosity. He even tested his strength gently, pressing against a scientist's finger without aggression. It was only after the crew electrocuted him that his behavior shifted permanently. Curiosity turned to hostility. From that point, every encounter was predatory, not out of malice, but out of adaptation. Humanity made him aggressive, and once the cycle began, there was no stopping it. What followed was not simple survival. Calvin kills with precision, sometimes with cruelty. The death of Ryan Reynolds' character is infamous. The organism enters his body and crushes each organ one by one. He didn't need to make it slow. He didn't need to inflict that much suffering, but he did. This moment shattered the idea of Calvin as a mindless creature. He wasn't just surviving, he was experimenting, possibly even enjoying the act. Then comes the most terrifying ability: assimilation of knowledge. After devouring Reynolds, Calvin immediately knew how to navigate the ISS ventilation system, something the human had been trained to do. That wasn't instinct, it was memory transfer. Every victim doesn't just feed him, it educates him. Imagine a predator that not only grows stronger with every kill, but also gains the skills, strategies, and intelligence of those it consumes. Calvin's physiology makes him nearly unkillable. Fire, the universal answer to alien threats, barely phases him. When struck with a flamethrower, he flinches, then adapts. Next time, it doesn't work at all. He pulses, almost as if absorbing the energy. Cold doesn't kill him either. He can hibernate indefinitely, waiting for conditions to improve. He doesn't need an ecosystem or a colony. He simply endures, ready to wake and consume again. And the ending of life takes everything further. Jake Gyllenhaal's character is shown cocooned inside a chitinous web, alive, restrained, not consumed. This doesn't look like feeding, it looks like preparation for reproduction. If Calvin was preparing to spawn, Earth wasn't just receiving a single organism. It was about to receive an entire invasive species. Fan theories magnify the dread. Some suggest he would die instantly in Earth's oceans, overwhelmed by salt and bacteria. Others imagine the opposite, that he infects marine life, duplicates his supercells, and soon Earth's biosphere is nothing but Calvin. In this scenario, resistance isn't war, it's futility. One commenter even described it best. Be Calvin, jump into the ocean, infect fish. More Calvins. Repeat. The Earth is now Calvin. Comparisons to other alien horrors only highlight how unique he is. Like The Thing, he operates at a cellular level, but unlike it, he doesn't need to assimilate DNA. He already has every trait required to survive. Like the Flood from Halo, he thrives on biomass, growing exponentially, but he doesn't need a hive mind or coordination. He's self-contained. Like the Blob, he increases in size with every meal, but he's intelligent enough to strategize and adapt. He is, in many ways, a fusion of all these nightmare archetypes without their limitations. And perhaps the most disturbing interpretation: Calvin has emotions. Not human emotions, but something we can recognize. Curiosity, hostility, sadism. The way he killed Reynolds wasn't efficient, it was excessive. The way he shifted from curiosity to aggression after being harmed wasn't blind instinct, it was retaliation. If that's true, Calvin is not just survival, he is judgment, the embodiment of alien life responding to human arrogance. The message behind Calvin is as terrifying as the creature itself. Humanity, desperate to prove we are not alone, finds life on Mars. And instead of understanding it, we torture it, cage it, shock it. The result is our extinction. Calvin doesn't represent invasion. He represents the consequence of awakening something we never should have touched, a predator that doesn't need ships, armies, or civilization. Just biology pushed to its absolute limit. Calvin is one of the most disturbing alien depictions ever put on screen, not because of what he does, but because of what he implies, that the universe may be filled with life forms like him, patient, adaptive, unkillable, waiting in the soil of some barren world for the arrogance of explorers to wake them up. Alex Garland's Annihilation introduced one of the most unsettling depictions of alien contact ever put on screen. The entity known as the Shimmer does not attack in the way we usually imagine extraterrestrials. It doesn't invade with ships, it doesn't communicate with demands, and it doesn't even express hostility in any recognizable way. What makes it horrifying is exactly this. It changes everything it touches at the most fundamental level of biology, and it does so without intent, without morality, and possibly without consciousness. The Shimmer begins as a meteor that crashes into a lighthouse on the Florida coast. What emerges from that impact is not a creature in the traditional sense, but an expanding electromagnetic field, an alien zone where the laws of nature no longer behave as we understand them. Inside, DNA itself is refracted and remixed like light through a prism. Plants sprout in impossible shapes. Animals mutate into hybrids, and even human bodies and minds begin to lose their boundaries. This is where the horror lies. The Shimmer doesn't simply mutate organisms at random, it splices. An albino alligator suddenly grows rows of shark-like teeth. Flowers bloom in human shapes. A bear absorbs the dying scream of its victim, turning vocal cords into a weapon of psychological torture. The most terrifying part is that none of this is malicious. It is simply the byproduct of an environment where genetic code is no longer stable. To enter the Shimmer is to step into a place where identity itself collapses. The expedition into Area X highlights this breakdown. Radios don't work. Days vanish from memory. The team loses track of time and self. Their bodies start to display physical anomalies, fingerprints shifting, cells blending. What begins as paranoia becomes realization. The Shimmer doesn't just distort DNA, it distorts consciousness. Memory, perception, and identity are as vulnerable to its refraction as the body. By the time Lena reaches the lighthouse, the phenomenon escalates from disturbing to cosmic. She finds video evidence of her husband Cain killing himself with a phosphorus grenade, his body liquefied into something alien. Only for another Cain, identical but not him, to walk into frame. In the chamber beneath, Lena comes face to face with the Shimmer's core. What emerges is not a monster, but a mirror. A humanoid doppelganger born from her own blood, imitating her every move with perfect synchronicity. Guns and brute force do nothing. The copy isn't aggressive, but it doesn't allow escape either. It is her, but not. This moment reframes the entire phenomenon. The Shimmer does not create predators for the sake of killing. It doesn't hunt. It replicates, distorts, and blends, until the very concept of individuality ceases to exist. When Lena uses a phosphorus grenade, the copy adopts her suicidal impulse and burns, collapsing the zone. But even this resolution is ambiguous. At the end, Cain and Lena both display the same alien shimmer in their eyes, suggesting the phenomenon never left them. Interpretations of the Shimmer multiply once you step back. Some fans argue that it is a direct homage to Lovecraft's The Color Out of Space, an alien entity that warps everything around it, beyond comprehension. Others see it as a metaphor for cancer, uncontrolled growth, mutation, destruction without intent. And the doppelganger sequence pushes it into existential horror. What if the greatest alien threat is not extermination, but the erasure of identity? What if survival means becoming something unrecognizable while still believing you are yourself? The mutated bear remains the most viscerally disturbing creation of the zone. Its body is rotting, its skull half exposed, but its stolen human voice is what terrifies. When it circles the survivors, screaming with Cass's voice, it becomes clear that the Shimmer doesn't just alter biology, it distorts the very essence of selfhood. A predator that carries the voice of your dead friend is more nightmarish than any simple monster. Whether the Shimmer has intent is left unanswered. Was it propagating itself mindlessly, like a virus? Or was it deliberately testing, probing, learning? At one point, Ventress describes it as something that will absorb and transform everything until nothing original remains. But when Lena escapes, the copy does not chase her. Some interpret this as proof that the entity chose to die, that after absorbing human qualities, it too became fractured, unstable, even suicidal. Others argue it was never alive in the way we understand. It was simply a process, and processes don't need purpose. The brilliance of the Shimmer is that it operates on every level of horror: body horror in the grotesque mutations, psychological horror in the loss of memory and identity, cosmic horror in its alien indifference and incomprehensible scope. It doesn't care about humanity, yet it ends up destroying and reshaping it, forcing us to confront what survival even means when the very idea of self is mutable. When Kane asks Lena at the end, "Are you really Lena?" and she cannot answer, the terror is complete because the shimmer is not gone. It's inside them, and perhaps, once altered, you never really come back. When people think of Alien, the image that usually comes to mind is the fully grown xenomorph, the tall, biomechanical nightmare with acid blood and jaws within jaws. But the real horror begins much earlier in the cycle, with something far smaller, far simpler, and in many ways, far more terrifying. That's the facehugger. This creature doesn't have personality, it doesn't hunt like a predator, and it doesn't care about dominance. Its entire existence is about one single purpose: turning you into an incubator. Its design is disturbing because it looks alien and yet strangely familiar. Imagine two skeletal hands fused together into a spider-like shape. It has 8 long, finger-like legs that cling to your skull and a tail that wraps tight around your throat like a spinal cord. Once it launches out of its egg and latches onto your face, you're finished. Those claws dig in, the tail constricts your airway, and no matter how much you fight, you can't peel it off. The real nightmare is what happens next. On the underside of its body, there's a fleshy opening that hides the proboscis, a tube about 1/2 meter long that it shoves down your throat. It doesn't simply drop an egg inside you. What it injects is a mutagen, a stream of genetic instructions that hijack your own body. From that moment, your cells are tricked into building the chestburster themselves, like a tumor growing at impossible speed. You're not just carrying the alien, you're manufacturing it. And the facehugger makes sure you stay alive through the process. It sedates you with chemicals that paralyze and knock you out. It provides oxygen through external sacs that pump air directly into your lungs. It even adapts. If you're heavier, lighter, stronger, it adjusts the dose so you don't die before implantation. If you wear a helmet, it secretes acid to melt a hole just big enough to reach you without killing you outright. If someone tries to pull it off, the tail strangles you until you pass out. Every aspect of its biology is engineered for one goal: ensuring the embryo survives. When its work is done, it detaches and dies. That's it. No feeding, no reproduction, no second act. The facehugger exists purely as a delivery system, a biological mechanism in the xenomorph life cycle, and once its function is complete, it's discarded. That's part of what makes it so disturbing. Its life begins and ends with the violation of another being. And there are worse versions. The royal facehugger, larger and more menacing, implants not just any alien, but a future queen. These can even inseminate multiple hosts at once, essentially ensuring the survival of an entire hive. Then there are anomalies like the trilobite in Prometheus, a grotesque, oversized variation born from the engineer pathogen. What really cements the horror of the facehugger isn't only the biology, it's the psychology. It doesn't come to kill you, it comes to use you. It hijacks your body against you. Victims often wake up afterward with no memory of what happened, even feeling healthier than before because of the adrenaline dump the process caused. And they have no idea that death is already gestating in their chest. Giger designed it with that exact perversion in mind. He made it small enough to fit into a helmet, intimate enough to make the attack personal. The monster doesn't just stalk you in the dark, it smothers your face, invades your body, and makes your own biology complicit in your destruction. That's why the facehugger is the true core of Alien's horror. It's not about a monster chasing you with teeth and claws. It's about being reduced to raw material, a vessel, an expendable cog in an alien reproductive cycle. And that kind of horror lingers because it forces you to confront the possibility that the most terrifying predators don't just kill you, they overwrite you. The Thing is one of those creatures that lingers in your mind long after you've seen it. And for me, it remains the most terrifying alien depiction ever created in fiction. At its core, it's an extraterrestrial parasite with one function above all else: to survive by becoming whatever it consumes. That's what makes it so terrifying. It doesn't just kill you, it breaks you down at the cellular level, copies every piece of your biology, and then wears you like a perfect disguise. It even keeps your memories, your mannerisms, the way you speak and move, so the people around you never know until it's too late. The nightmare starts in John Carpenter's 1982 film, when a research station in Antarctica takes in what looks like a sled dog fleeing from a Norwegian camp. That dog is already compromised, a carrier. When it reveals itself, the transformation is grotesque and chaotic, limbs sprouting in impossible directions, heads splitting open, flesh bubbling into tentacles and eyes. That's the real face of the thing. Not one face at all, but raw biology in flux, always shifting until it stabilizes into its target. You don't get a glimpse of the creature's true form because there isn't one. It has probably absorbed countless organisms across the galaxy long before it crashed here. The process of assimilation is slow, insidious, and that's what breeds paranoia. The victim doesn't always die right away. Sometimes the infection spreads cell by cell, hours before the host realizes anything is wrong. By then, the thing has total control, and once it takes over, it has no reason to reveal itself unless it's forced to. This is where the horror turns psychological. If your best friend, your colleague, or your partner can be completely replaced and still smile back at you like nothing happened, then trust becomes impossible. Carpenter weaponized that paranoia to devastating effect. Every scene in that station feels like a ticking bomb. The prequel from 2011 expands on this infection process in brutal ways. Kate Lloyd, the paleontologist who survives the Norwegian encounter, discovers the creature cannot mimic inorganic material. Fillings, dental crowns, prosthetics, those remain behind, spat out during transformation, which is how she identifies who's human and who isn't. That detail makes the creature even scarier, because it shows that every assimilation is precise, calculated, down to rejecting what doesn't belong. The film also makes clear that the thing doesn't just attack openly. It splits, it multiplies, it diversifies its strategies depending on circumstance. In one scene, a single arm breaks off from a body and tries to assimilate on its own. Each fragment fights to survive independently. That means every cell is the thing. You're not dealing with one monster, you're dealing with an entire colony of organisms working in unison, and every drop of blood could betray you. Its resilience is another layer of horror. Fire is the only reliable way to kill it, because heat destroys it at the cellular level. Bullets, knives, blunt force, none of that matters. Cut it apart, and the pieces just keep moving, sprouting legs, trying to scuttle away. Cold doesn't stop it either. It can hibernate in the ice for centuries until the next unlucky explorers dig it out. That's exactly what happens both in the prequel and in Campbell's original novella, Who Goes There? Humanity doesn't find the thing because it's hunting us. We unleash it ourselves by mistake, by curiosity, by arrogance. And the most disturbing part isn't just what it does, but the scale of what could have happened. Blair, one of the scientists in the '82 film, calculates that if the thing reached a major population center, the entire planet would be assimilated within 27,000 hours, just over 3 years. Think about that. Humanity gone, every city and town replaced by perfect imitations, and no one left to even realize it happened. The world wouldn't end with fire or nuclear war, but with silence, as the last real humans vanish into a crowd of copies. The genius of Carpenter's film is that he never shows you the endgame. He shows you the breakdown of trust. The true antagonist is as much the paranoia as the creature itself. By the finale, MacReady and Childs sit in the burning ruins of the station, both suspicious of each other, both possibly infected. Neither of them trusts the other, and neither trusts themselves. That ambiguity is what makes the thing legendary. You never know if it died in the fire, or if it walked out disguised as the last man standing. When I saw this movie as a kid, it terrified me in a way that almost nothing else did. It wasn't just the gore, it was the idea that identity itself could be stolen without anyone noticing. That's why the thing endures as one of the most disturbing alien depictions ever put on screen. The Necromorphs are easily some of the most terrifying monsters ever created for a video game, and they sit at the very core of the Dead Space universe. The first time you meet them isn't in a lab report or a cutscene explaining what they are. It's in the middle of chaos. A mining ship called the USG Ishimura, drifting silent in space, its corridors smeared with blood, its crew mutilated, and something moving in the dark that shouldn't exist. At first glance they look like zombies, but they're not. They're something far worse. What you're really looking at are dead human bodies repurposed by an alien signal. That signal comes from the markers, strange black or red monoliths left behind by an ancient unknown race. When they activate, they emit a kind of electromagnetic pulse, On the living, the effect is madness, hallucinations, paranoia, suicides, or sudden bursts of violence where people butcher each other. On the dead, the signal does something even worse. It rewrites them. Bones snap and bend into blades, organs cook and liquefy, muscles are ripped apart and reknitted into weapons. In seconds, a corpse becomes a killing machine. The result is a necromorph, and there isn't just one kind. The most common are the slashers, with arms mutated into massive bone scythes. Then you have the lurkers, usually made from infants or animals, their tiny bodies turned into wall-crawling nightmares that fire spines. The brutes are huge, covered in thick plates of bone, designed to smash through bulkheads and crush survivors. The infectors spread the nightmare further, stabbing corpses with needle-like appendages to reanimate them into more necromorphs. And this is just the beginning. The series shows dozens of different forms, each more grotesque than the last. As the infection spreads, the environment itself starts to change. Pink, pulsating tissue grows across walls, floors, and ceilings. This is called the corruption, living biomass that feeds on everything around it and prepares the ship for full infestation. It's not random either. The necromorphs move with purpose, hunting in groups, ambushing from vents, and coordinating their attacks. That's because they're all connected to a hive mind, a shared consciousness that directs the infection like a general commanding an army. But the hive mind isn't the end. All of this, the markers, the reanimated bodies, the corruption spreading like a cancer, points towards something bigger, the Brethren Moons. These are colossal planet-sized entities made entirely of necromorph flesh. They're created in a process called convergence, where enough biomass is collected and fused together to form a living god of meat. Every slash, every infection, every corpse dragged into the dark is part of that agenda. The necromorphs don't exist to kill randomly. They exist to build something vast. Fighting them is another layer of horror. Shooting them in the head doesn't work. Blowing a hole in their chest won't stop them. The only way to take one down is strategic dismemberment, cutting off their limbs piece by piece until the body falls apart. That design isn't just gameplay mechanics. It reinforces the idea that you're not fighting enemies. You're fighting corpses re-engineered into weapons. And the only way to stop them is to literally dismantle the body. And behind it all, the most disturbing detail is that the markers don't just create monsters. They manipulate people. They whisper. They show visions. They inspire entire cults. That's where the Church of Unitology comes in. To them, necromorphs aren't an apocalypse. Their salvation. They believe the convergence is humanity's destiny, an ascension into something higher. For players, that's what really drives the horror home, is the fact that some humans want this to happen. Well guys, that's all for today. Let me know in the comments which alien depiction disturbed you the most, or if there's one you think should have been on this list. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.